Hey guys, Coach here. Welcome to this week's episode. This particular week, I would like to extend a special thanks to the Lowe's Corporation, who partnered with us and helped us out to attain the materials that you're going to see here today. Lowe's, thank you very much. What we are doing here today is an experimental patio in the front part of our house. It is only 10 by 10, but will be expanded later on, and I'll explain how we're going to do that. But we're doing it slightly different from industry standard. Instead of doing deep digs, clear stone, gator pads, and other type of materials, we're using what's already in place at the driveway entrance of our home. Already compacted, clear stone that's there already, and we've built it up, sloped it correctly, and put in a 10 by 10 patio. I hope you enjoy it. It's a slight shortcut with very little risk to us as far as displacement, frost heave, etc. So if you don't have excavators and you don't have that soil that's easily diggable like we do, it's nice to have an alternative way of installing a patio. I hope you enjoy it. Drop your questions and comments below, because I'm sure there'll be a few. And please disregard the moose leg down at my right foot. That happened to show up in the forest surrounding us this week. Anyway, let's get started. So here we are at the box store, and let the patio journey begin. This obviously is the loading of the patio pavers and also the paver sand and 1-inch poles and polymeric sand and the things that we needed to do the job. But one of the things that you have to be aware of is, how do you get the material from the store to your yard? If you do not have a vehicle capable of handling that, then you're going to have to figure out how to get it home. In this case here, we have about 4,000 pounds going into the bed of the truck. And although we have a very stout dually pickup truck, it still squished it just a little bit, but still not quite as much as what our big camper does. But they're going to carefully get it in there, and I'm behind the stack guiding the guy so that he doesn't damage the tailgate. But if you do not have a big vehicle like this, perhaps you have friends and family that have a trailer, or you could have it delivered. So all the way home, 40 miles, and here we are. This is where the work actually begins. And look at Maestro, man. She's just gonna help me out doing this. And this is our daily lift and get our work on, so to speak. We did this in about 15 minutes. Can you believe it? And it was not hot. It was an okay temperature to do the work, and we got it transferred down there. Now, we did not do all the work on this particular day. The day came following, the next morning. But there was, out of this whole full pallet of 16-inch pavers, there was only one that was damaged. So not too bad. And we'll end up taking that one back and getting some credit for it. And I did some prep work here in the area the evening before. I didn't want to work in a dusty environment, and the stone dust driveway, once it dries out, it can be a little dusty. So I started in with the loosening everything up and getting down to my 1-inch compacted gravel that's down underneath this. And remember, this is kind of an experimental patio. We're going to see what happens in a frost environment to see what kind of heaving goes on. And if everything goes according to what I hope, then next year we're going to expand on this patio just a little bit. Maybe another 16 inches out, another 3 feet to the left of the camera here, and then over by the hose bib, and that will be all that we need. Then we can decorate it up with some other stuff, like some container gardening and that kind of stuff. But I'm raking out the fresh stone dust that I put in there just a couple months ago. Just got the place all neat and tidy, and here I am destroying it all over again. And if you look up at the right corner of this frame, you can see the 1-inch clear stone that was underneath the stone dust. And that's what I'm getting this grade down to. It didn't take very long. I was able to do this in a matter of, probably less than an hour for sure, because we're only dealing with 10 by 10. But I needed to get down below the threshold of the front slider there. I needed to have 2 inches plus an inch of bedding for the pavers to fit in correctly. And there was a few things. There was some bottom flange of the metal siding that you see down there below the hose bib, and over to the far side of the frame where the drain line and stuff is. So I had to be able to fit it at or below those thresholds. That was my guide. And excavating all this out and just stockpiling it, you notice, I'm not hauling it off. I'm stockpiling it because I'm probably gonna have to fill in some spots to the exact correct grade that I need. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to have a 1/8 inch pitch from the hose bib side over to the greenery that you see in the background, and then an 1/8 inch pinch from the slider door out towards the driveway. That was my goal. And in this particular case, we're not going to polymeric sand it. We're not going to do anything. We basically put it on the sand bed that we bought. You can see the bagged goods in the background. That's most of what it's going to be placed on, and then remaining stone dust. And we're just going to see what happens when it comes this winter as far as frost heave and displacement, and then how it corrects itself next spring when everything thaws out. So I'm starting to do some guidelines here. I'm getting some grade established by using some rebar and some string line. And I'm kind of bringing all my materials that I need, my tools out piecemeal here, because I didn't know what it was going to be like to pound the rebar down into this ground. And there was some spots that was rather challenging. It didn't go down in as great as I thought it was going to, but that's the ledge stone type of soil that we have here underneath the house. It's very, very, very firm. It really is. So much is that we needed a rock breaker earlier to put in drain lines and stuff. So I'm getting my grade established there. I've got that pitch going from one side to the other how I want it, and I'm going to set that string right there as I start the grading process even further. One of the things that I was having trouble with is once I got the rebar down in there, the rebar was not sticking like it would in a solid soil situation. It was stone and ledge stone, and once you fracture that, you don't have a perfect hole in which to hold the stick itself. So now it's time to grade out a little bit. I've got a string line set side to side, and I'm going to now string out the one front to back, so to speak. And this is where we start to get a little technical. You want to have it smooth, but you don't want to disrupt your substrate underneath there. So I'm taking off only what I need in the form of the stone dust layer right now. Underneath this, compacted 1-inch rock. And that slider, before the house was renovated, that slider was actually a garage door. So there was a very compacted 1-inch stone apron leading up to this. And all I did was put the stone dust over it and kind of created a little outdoor patio area, kind of like we did in the backyard. So there's my grade getting set for the front edge. I needed to be 3 inches down off of the string line. 1 inch for bedding sand and 2 inches for the stone itself. And that's what I'm shooting for right now. And you can see I'm bringing a little material back in because there is a lot of slope from house to driveway here. I'm having to raise the front edge of this patio up about 3 inches so that I have that 1/8 inch pitch. Because the way it was, I probably had closer to a 1/2 inch pitch. And that was just too steep for a patio to put furniture on or to stand on. It would just be obviously sloped. So there's my screening rods that I'm putting in right now. Very easy to do, and I suggest metal. of either gas line or galvanized. In this case, it was chrome plated closet rod, heavy, but not nearly the cost of a gas line rod. So I am now going to fill that up to that, and I'm going to fill in the voids underneath that straight stiff rod so that I have an exact layer, exact bedding layer on which I can start putting. See, and you can see that bubble sitting right on that upside line. Great 1/8 inch pitch, and that's what I wanted. So now it's time to start putting in some of the bedding material itself. This was also, we got it at Lowe's. This is step 2 of the process after your clear grade and other stuff. I'm going to set those rods in the bedding sand itself so they don't move around, because I have them just right as far as slope. And I'm going to set them in the bedding sand on both rods there, and then fill in between, which you will see here in a minute. Double check, double check, double check. Now, here comes the screed board. A simple 2x4, but a good straight 2x4. Not a piece of crap. It has to be straight. And we're going to screed that off, screed it off so it's nice and level, and what you see is where the pavers are going to rest on. And we're going to move it over, repeat the process again, but now we have the bed for the pavers established. And that's what we really wanted to do. This whole process, the construction part of the process, took about just under 4.5 hours, maybe almost 5 hours to do. I took a break, had a little something to eat and drink, and made sure I stayed hydrated, and it turned out good. We weren't in a super rush to do it, but at the same token, I didn't want the front yard all messed up. I wanted to get it in and get it done, so to speak. So we're doing the whole process just like we did the first time, making sure that I'm adhering to that 3-inch drop from the string line that you see there, and the one that's down low in the picture. And you can see the final bed. You can see the final bed of which we're going to do here. I'm going to fill in the little pipe crevices here, and I'll end up using a little wooden trowel to finish that off as I start doing the pavers. And I'm going to do the pavers from the foreground going across rather than from the right hand side of the picture and working towards the house. I want my house paver line established and making sure that I have the correct pitch and the correct slope, and then I'll fill it in from house out to the 2x4 there. I thought I kind of overbought some of this paver sand that's going in right now. I bought 20 bags, and I thought, oh man, I'm never going to use all this stuff. And it turned out that, yeah, I kind of did. I did use a lot of the paver stuff. I think I had 2 bags left over, which I used on a side door, where I used the final 4 pieces for an entry for the small side door. And it worked out good. It's a good product. It really is. I think the company is called Colorscape. It has a little bit of sediments with gravel, so it sets well and it keeps its shape. But at the same token, it's not super heavy. It's convenient to work with. The bags, I think, are probably about 40 pounds, so it was easy to do. And now I've got my right angle square up against the house, and that linear line of that square pointing left to right is where I'm going to set my first paver. As you see there, I want that square to the house, and then I will take that line out from there. Now, is everything ever perfect when it comes to a construction process? Sometimes it is, but in this case, you're always dealing with micro adjustments. And the first row here kind of established and got rid of any sort of imperfections that I wanted. I brought in just a skosh more bedding sand, and then I leveled up each one. But as I migrated forward, the inconsistency of grade lessened a lot, and I was able to move along a lot faster. And this kind of repeated itself. Near the house, there was more slope, and then it lessened as it came out towards the front of the patio. Row number two. Row number two, you have row number one on which you can now stand, kneel, do whatever you need to do. And I'm still using the square to come off perfectly square to the house. And then just getting that first stone as I want it. And now you have the complication of leveling not just that one row, but now you're having to match it up against the one you just finished. And here is where the bedding sand, the rods, and other things tend to make the job a little easier. You notice that it's going in a lot faster on the second row than it did the first. And there's the broken one. There was the broken one. Out of 70 individual stones, I had one. So that's not, I guess that's not too bad. It's not. And we'll get credit for it. So, okay, so we're moving out on row number two. And as this project comes together, I can start to see the finish line. And it's really a good feeling when you've taken nothing of just gravel and you've created a little outdoor living space. Now, what we found after this was installed was it was still warm, and it's so warm that you couldn't sit out there the next afternoon. It kind of baked you a little bit. But yesterday we sat out there, especially in the morning, and we had our cup of coffee in the morning, and it was perfect. It was just perfect. Probably couldn't do it in July because this is a west-southwest exposure, so it's not quite as comfortable. But it's a heck of a lot better than just sitting on gravel, don't you think? And we repeat the process. We do not miss any of the steps, and we make sure that they're all as perfect as possible. I found myself going back and kind of scooching some rows here and there to make sure the intersections were lined up and it was stable. There wasn't any teeter-tottering of the stones, which I'll tell you, when you're dealing with material like this, sometimes there'll be a little high spot and a low spot, and you'll get you'll hear it if you use the rubber mallet there. You'll hear it. It'll be a tink tink sound rather than a thud, and you want the thud sound by all means, because that means that the stone is sitting flat on the bed of your paver bed. Otherwise, it means that there's an air pocket underneath there, and you're getting that hollow sound instead of the solid sound. So now we're just about halfway there. We've filled in some of the trenches. We're kind of in a groove now. If you've ever done a project and you kind of realize, okay, I got this. This is going to come together really easy. And you just get in a groove and you go. Because you can see the finish line. You know where it's at. And start, get in, make sure that you keep up a head of steam. If you need to stop, okay, but then you run the risk of dogs, cats, kids, people, delivery people walking across your bedding layer there that needs to remain pretty perfect at all times. It really does. It needs to be undisturbed. And if you leave it overnight, you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's best, especially on a small project like this, get in and get it done. Like I said, it was about just under 5 hours. I started right around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe slightly earlier, maybe noon, and we were done before cocktail hour. So it was good. It was a fun project. It was a cooler day when I did this. It was probably like 65 degrees and kind of cloudy skies. So it was a great working weather day. It really was. The sun wasn't burning you. The reflective heat off the house there on a cooler day was much easier to work in. And we kind of planned it that way. I don't like working in the high heat anymore. I did too much of that when I was out in Northern California. And I'm just getting a little too old to be working in that kind of heat. So 65 degrees, it was a heck of a blessing. So we've got our last 2 rows going in here now. We're doing a little bit of fine tuning because of that 1-inch bedding layer that got exposed right below the hose bib. And so I kind of had to shove a little bit of the bedding sand around and really get it leveled up. My Wonder Bar pry tool came in really handy as far as pulling and pushing the row and making sure the intersections lined up really, really well. And as we came towards the finish line here, it became obvious that we were going to be able to sit out on it, that evening and be able to enjoy a glass of wine and look back on the work that we did. And that's very, very rewarding as a DIYer. It really is. Now, how many of these have I put in my career? Probably 20 over, several hundred landscapes. I would say 20 paver patios went in. And this particular one, the 16-inch square with the Allegheny design, I've used a few other times, and it's a good product, especially a good DIY product. And the other ones that I've used were 3-piece and 5-piece individuals that you had to put in a pattern. Clean it off, and there you go. Wash it down, get rid of the product dust that's on there. Now, what we're going to do, like I said at the top of the show, is we're going to leave this just as is. I'm going to backfill around the edges and take care of it as far as the winter. We'll snow shovel it off. We'll see what kind of displacement happens with the frost heave. And then next spring, we will expand this a little bit. I've already got the polymeric sand, and we'll expand it, finish it off. We're going to finish it to camera right there. So a little 5-hour project that you could pull off yourself. I sure do appreciate you hanging with me this far. Let's wrap this video up, shall we? Hey guys, Coach here. Hey, I'd like to introduce you to our new 10x10 front yard patio that we put in over the weekend. A great big shout out to Lowe's Corporation, for partnering with us and helping us out with providing some of the materials of this project. This is a good one. This turned out really nice, but it's not finished. What we're going to end up doing is just graveling the edges for the winter, and we're going to come back and expand it just a little bit more next spring for a much larger, more functional, and definitely a little bit of a curve here, a little wider there, and big enough to accommodate maybe some greenery in some containers. But thanks again to Lowe's. Check out Lowe's Finds in the description below. We are an affiliate, so make sure that you mention Yard Coach when you're buying stuff. But once again, a nice 10x10 developed front area where we're not having to walk up gravel all the way to the slider. Hey, we're not done here yet. We got some gallon can plant material that has to go in. We have stocked up on our firewood for the winter, and we have one more tree purchase to make before we go night-night for the winter out here. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you got something from this video. And if you did, please give us a like and maybe get a subscribe from you. I'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions about how to put this in or any other landscape related questions, make sure that you check out our website, youryardcoach.com. And if you have questions that you want to directly email to me, make sure youryardcoach@gmail.com. Thanks again, Lowe's. We very much appreciate you. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. As always, to your landscape success, I will see you guys next week. As always, bye for now.